Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
Okay, rolling. So great.
So ridiculously bright. You can move it over a little bit if you want.
I know, so bright.
Like, I don't know which way is better though. It's so bright.
We're getting the suntan.
Yeah, I know. Can we just open them at least to get the UV rays?
Yeah.
Actual real light.
Here at Ultron Books, we're so excited to welcome Sasha DiGiulian in partnership with Sportrock. Special thanks to Sportrock for welcoming us to this amazing community space. We're so glad that we were able to do this together. If you are unable to get a copy of Sasha's book, we have a ton for sale in the back, and if you pre-ordered it, we can happy hand that off to you as well. And please check out our website, ultronbooks.com, for other events and book clubs that we will have in the future. Sasha DiGiulian is a world champion climber and 3-time U.S. national champion. She's also the author of the new book, Take the Lead, Hanging On, Letting Go, and Conquering Life's Hardest Climbs. At 30 years old, Sasha has traveled to over 50 countries and accomplished over 31st and first female ascents. In 2016, she graduated from Columbia University with a focus on journalism and business, and in 2022 became the founder and CEO of Send Bars, a superfood nutrition bar company. In addition to being featured in dozens of magazines and news media pieces, Sasha has written for many publications, including Outside Magazine, National Geographic, Rock and Ice, Self, 17, and Crave. Sasha is an outspoken environmental activist and a global athlete ambassador for Right to Play, Protect Our Winters, and Up to Us Sports. She served on the board of the Women's Sports Foundation for 6 years and travels globally for expeditions, speaking engagements, sporting events, and commercial work. Sportrock director Molly Cupka will be talking with Sasha about her book, and then we will open the floor to questions from others. I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for Sasha here. Well, Sasha doesn't know this, but I'm going to start out by telling a story of Sasha. When Sasha and I went climbing, don't worry, it's me. I was the bad one in the story. So Sasha and I went climbing, and she taught me something like really important on that trip that has helped me with kids in the future. We went climbing at Red River Gorge, and you probably remember on the first climb you got on, you're like, you got this? And I'm like, yeah, I got this. And she took a fall, and I did not give very much slack. And she whipped into the wall, and as soon as she did that, I was like, oh no. And she's like, looks down at me, do you mind giving me a little more cushion next time? I was like, yeah, I got it. I never belayed somebody that weighed less than me, and you've taught me a lot since then. The second thing about that trip was you warmed up on a climb that you thought was a 512. And then she was like, okay, you're next, go ahead and go up the climb. And I was like, a 512 is not really a warm-up climb for me, but I'll top rope it. And so I got on to top rope it, and I am just trying so hard, and I cannot get up this climb. And I'm like, geez, what the heck? Like, this is ridiculous. And then some guy down there, because I was like, this is a really hard 512, and he's like, that's a 13B. Sasha didn't even know. She warmed up on it and didn't even know. I don't know if you remember that, but I do.
I don't remember. I don't remember the tough
Good,
catch. So
good.
for those of you out there who've short roped your climbing partner, don't worry about it.
So first I want to say that I did get the honor of reading Sasha's book. I did it on audio, and it's pretty cool. If you guys want the audio, she actually is the one who reads it, so it feels very personal that way. And one thing that stood out to me is you talked about this moment in there when you were at the grocery store with by yourself. It was when your dad was in the hospital, and you talked about how you looked around at all the other people and were wondering kind of what was going on in their lives and how it was kind of weird that they didn't know what was going on in your life personally. And I feel like the book does a really good job of that with you. Like, we get to kind of get into your head and your life and get to like see what you're thinking while you're going through all these crazy things you're doing in life, which is really cool, and it's relatable. So that instance in the grocery store, did that change you in any way? Like, does it make you reflect different on people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that we right now live in both a really interconnected world, but also very disconnected. If you think about how much we can vicariously live through each other's lives through seeing what's happening on the surface. You see curated lives through social media. You may read about my life through the New York Times, whatever it is. But you're not getting really the true story of everything that's happening down to the thought process behind it, because it's real life, and real life happens outdoors. It happens in our moments together, like tonight. So thanks so much for coming out. But in writing the book, I really wanted to capitalize on the fact that I had this window to tell my story. And for so long, other people may have judged my story from when I was, 6 and climbing here, and you may think, this is what's happening, but to actually be able to have my narrative. And so in the process of writing my book, I think that I did develop more of this empathy that you're mentioning, because I remember moments in my life where I've gone through really tough times, and then realizing other people just have no idea what you're going through, because how would they? And there's not enough time in our days to really know what's happening for everyone. But just understanding, why someone may feel a certain way or act towards you in a certain way, and trying to be empathetic there. I think that through the process of writing the book, that was something that I got to develop better. As well as just see foundational patterns of like what makes us react and interact with people and situations in different ways.
Thank you. You mentioned starting climbing when you were 6 here. It was at your brother's birthday party. So do you have memories of that day? Like what drew you, what inspired you so much about climbing that day?
So Sportrock was about 1/8 the size of it is now. Like this bay. What was this bay before?
It wasn't ours.
It wasn't Sportrock. That's for
We were
sure.
just Bay 1.
Yeah, I've actually gone back a few weeks ago. I was in town in DC for a quick dinner, and I went by the wall that my brother had, my very first climb at. And I actually made a journal entry because I've always liked writing. And I drew a picture of all the like colored holds and everything. And back in the birthday party days, I don't know if you guys still use those like old black strap harnesses. I remember those. And the gym kind of honestly smelled like dirty feet.
Still does.
It was really like dark. Now I think that Sportrock's just, the evolution of climbing in general, right? Like we see so many climbing gyms opening around the world and these super centers. So it's really cool to see the sports grow.
So what keeps you psyched climbing 24 years after that? What makes you keep wanting to come back?
I think that, for me, climbing's always just been what I really like doing. And for whatever reason, it's what brings me the most joy. And so I'm really curious in my professional career about what I'm capable of, so that keeps me excited. And then over the course of the last 3 years, I had double hip reconstruction surgery, and climbing wasn't a part of my life for 6 months. And the good thing is I got a lot of writing done. The bad thing was I really realized that I missed this sport that for so long was such a big part of my life, and then was taken out of my life. So I think in that way, just having that moment to realize and reflect and see that I really missed it too was good for me. So I think to that question, like taking breaks and recognizing and connecting with why you're doing what you're doing and making sure that it's because you enjoy it.
Yeah, that double hip surgery did not look or sound fun. I know it's a long recovery, and I'm sure you probably are still recovering from it. I mean, it takes a long time. How was the recovery, and like how are you now with climbing? You said, you still want to climb, it kind of inspired you, but like, do you think about it any different now?
So to kind of do broad strokes of what I went through, I had what's called hip dysplasia, which is a congenital hip malfunction. And essentially my femur head was popping out of the pelvic socket. So I had to get a new pelvic socket built on both sides, and that required my pelvic bone being cut into 4 pieces on both sides and cutting through the abdominal wall and knitting and reconnecting all of my ligaments. So in the process, I lost a lot of my hyper flexibility, which was both, something that was like my kryptonite. It really helped me in my climbing, but it also hindered me from strength and created a lot of pain. So in the process of coming back, I was told from a myriad of professionals that I may never be able to professionally climb again. And one of my most joyful moments last year was actually realizing a 514 big wall that was the hardest climb done by a team of women last fall, because it was like so full of struggle and doubt and time away from the sport. My style of climbing has definitely changed. I can now rely more on my lower half, and because that's functional, so I can be more of an explosive climber, but I've definitely lost a lot of flexibility too, which has changed, from the way that I approach climbing, being 5'3" despite my platform sneakers. My mom may say 5'2". Yeah, I think that adapting, and all of our bodies go through certain things that may be of an accident, maybe whatever it is. So just learning and adapting, I think that that's where climbing is a really cool sport, because it's so adaptive to so many body types, to reading and creating art on the wall of how you approach a climb.
Thank you. Your mom, speaking of your mom, you have a pretty special relationship with your mom. So how has that evolved over the years, from being a 6-year-old and 9-year-old with her belaying for you all the time to how it is today?
Yeah, my mom's here.
Yeah.
As well as my mom really enabled me to climb. When I went to my brother's birthday party, I then joined the local, the junior team here at Sportrock, and I started coming Wednesdays and Saturdays to the gym. Stumbled upon a competition one Saturday morning, and going from like local competitions to flying around the world together. My mom actually belayed me on one of my 9As, which was really cool, in Spain, called Arabea. And I think that the relationship that you get to develop with your climbing partner in general, like from whether it's your partner or your good friend, someone that you're even getting to know, that's been a fun part of climbing in general. It's like a very global community.
So you talk about creating your own path in climbing a lot in your book, and clearly you've done that, starting with going to college and being a professional climber while going to college. What's the most fun part about creating your own path, and is it ever evolving?
I think we're all creating our own paths because we all are trying to figure out what we're doing. But in climbing, yeah, I never really was like, I want to be a professional climber when I grew up, because depending how I say grow up, I had my first sponsor at 12, but I didn't really know what professional climbing meant so much. And I think that the definition of that has changed over the last 2 decades drastically. And I think in creating my path, it's been a lot of dictating, what I represent, what I stand for, how I am off the wall as well, and the organizations that I can work with, how I can use my platform as an athlete while I have an audience that's listening to actually care about really important issues like climate change legislation and equal pay for women. There's a lot of issues that I think exist, and then as having the platform of an athletic career, I've been able to have this privilege to champion. So a lot of it is just listening to my gut of like what feels right to me, and then using, I guess, my voice as best as I can.
Yeah, so Sasha, I do know you are a big environmental activist. You've done a lot, and you even did a project at Breaks Interstate Park, which is a Virginia park, very west near Kentucky. But she bolted there and did a bunch of cool stuff to try and bring people into the community. What are you currently working on for environmental?
Yeah, right now I am actually working with Protect Our Winters which is a really great organization. It's really a cross-pollination of different outdoor sports that's created the outdoor state, which is essentially a definition of 50 million people who partake in the outdoors are a part of this state. And through Protect Our Winters, we do a lot of advocacy with different local and national representatives. I know that as of late, last month, there's been a lot of really great laws that have gone to pass that we've worked hard on, like stopping drilling in the Arctic Refuge. I do work with Access Fund, which that project in Breaks was part of the Access Fund of just creating and enabling more climbing areas. So for those of you guys who haven't been to Breaks, it's a really cool place. I think it's actually not too far from you, maybe 4 hours.
Yeah,
or
about
so.
4 hours, yeah.
And I've actually been developing a new climb with Lynn Hill, who is one of my climbing mentors and heroes. And we've developed a 3-pitch climb that we've been working on in Boulder, Colorado. So that's on the kind of, climbing development side, which I think one aspect of the sport growing and expanding is what do we do about overcrowded places outdoors? And for me, that's been develop new outdoor places and more access to sport, because the more that we can develop skills around leave no trace and basic practices and education around how to interact with the outdoors, it's also, in my opinion, about creating more places, so that the places that we can go out and recreate and engage with are ever expanding, because we have so many beautiful places to explore too.
So other things that you have accomplished are starting a company for bars. Sasha has a company, Send Bars, and you made it because you wanted a healthy bar and you couldn't find anything out there that was really nutritious. So will you tell me a little bit about starting that company, what like the highs and lows were of that?
Yeah,
We have
saw some
samples,
Send
yeah.
Bar samples actually
Sample
over there.
for you guys.
I always made my own bars. Actually, I didn't find what I wanted on the market, because a lot of the bars out there are full of chemicals and preservatives and natural flavorings, which are not regulated by the FDA, by the way. They're not so natural for you. But I also didn't like the way that healthy food tasted. I thought it didn't taste good. So I would take dates and nuts and vegetable powders and throw them into my blender in high school and in my freshman dorm in college, and registered the name Send Bars in 2012. Had too much on my plate, yes, pun intended, going on. And so I kind of just had it as a back project thought until actually when I had all my hip surgeries, I was really leaning into learning more about nutrition. Nutrition and educating myself has played a big role in me overcoming battles that I've had with my own body of learning more about nutrition and the balance of how to be a long-term progressing athlete with proper nutrition. So that kind of formulated, I guess, the foundation of when I started building my team of women together into founding Send Bars, which we launched last year. And it's been a really fun new venture for me. I think that there's a lot of parallels that we can draw from climbing to life, as well as in business. Like when I'm planning for an expedition, I'm laying out all of the risks, how we're going to mitigate risks, what our control variables are, what variables we can't control, how we as a dynamic on an expedition are going to be communicating, what our intentions are, and those practices, I think, go into the workplace very handedly. So it's been a fun thing to explore and kind of build my Send Bars expedition team.
They're really good. I eat them every day.
Great.
I fund Sportrock.
That's awesome. You fund me then.
I fund you too, yes. They're good. You guys should go try them though. They cut up a bunch of flavors in there. After this, you guys should go try them. Congratulations on your recent wedding to Eric, who has some family here as well.
Got it.
Eric's an Emmy Award-winning producer and pretty awesome and accomplished, like Sasha. He's also not a competitive climber. What's it been like being in a relationship with a non-climber? I am too, so it's okay.
It healthy.
Right? Right? It is.
I definitely went through my fair share of, fighting my prince because, we all do. I think that, balance and how we can be in relationships with climbers or we cannot be, I think it's just all about how you support each other. So, finding a supportive partner and friends in life and family in life that believes in you is really important because the world is full of enough, trolls that you really want to build your support network and the people that you allow opinions to matter.
And in reading your book and knowing you're pretty multidimensional, so having other things to talk about, I remember reading that in your book is probably fun as well. Do you still like pink? Nails, your nails. A superstition of mine before hard climbs has always been to paint my nails pink. We all have our lucky color, but pink's still my favorite color. And I guess I like colors in general though. I would like to open the floor up for you guys. Do you guys have any questions for Sasha? Oh, I see one.
I will see if I can climb tonight after this.
Like what you were talking about with nutrition, and I think we're seeing a lot more people talk about that in climbing now, especially like at the competitive level. Oh God, thanks, Molly. But we see so many people, especially women, who sometimes really struggle to maintain their nutrition and stay competitive. And I think it'd be really cool to hear you talk about how you did that and how you managed to really focus on nutrition as opposed to what you look like on the wall or what the losing weight in order to get higher faster.
Molly's doing her exercise. Ready to go that point. So I think the question on nutrition, it's a tough one because climbing is a strength to body weight ratio sport, and we're all aware of that. And on the competition circuit, it's something that I experienced from an early age, from when I was a young teenager. I think that the conversation needs to be about how to feed your body properly, and that's the way that we can optimally perform, and learning more about the ingredients that we put into our bodies in order to see food more as an additive, and learning about adaptogens and collagen and vitamins through the food that I eat helped me through surgery. I had a history of disordered eating for a period of time when I was highly competitive on the World Cup circuit, and that was because it was just the way that it was. I would see my competitors, and it's sad because a lot of them were really, really struggling on the inside to actually try and be as light as they could be, but then compromise their strength and compromised. So many of my competitors don't even climb anymore because I think at one point or another it all catches up to you, and you have to feed your body properly. And a big realization for me was when I went through so many this massive injury, and I'm just seeing how giving my body the right nutrients can actually help it build back, and seeing my body as like this incredible thing if I actually treat it well. But I think that knowledge within performance is really important. I've been working with the Red Bull High Performance Center around strength and conditioning. And so if you think about a sport that is strength to body weight ratio, well, if you're not changing the weight, increase your strength. And so seeing that, I think, is really important in not only young kids climbing in competitions, but I think it's really important across both genders, like men and women. If we could be stronger, smarter, more efficient, better technical climbers, then you fight past that ever-present conversation about strength and weight being this balance.
Any other questions in here?
Yeah.
Say the question. She says yes.
Hi, I'm a climbing mom, and I have a 15-year-old who can start climbing morning and night. Was there ever a time when you did want to climb, and did you and the people around you give you permission to take a break? And I look forward to reading the book.
I had not taken much time off of climbing, so I guess the question around like a 15-year-old who just wants to climb, because I totally relate to that. I think it's like when you're really excited to do something, you shouldn't hold it back and say it's like a forced break. But I think for me, learning that it's okay to take breaks was something that I continue to wrestle with. It's like, I think that intersection of climbing being also my job and my profession, there's a lot of pressure for me to be outputting and to be pushing my limits, but I think that a part of training is rest. So balancing that into how we, treat our bodies to recover from how hard we push our bodies is important. So I think that time off is all relative. It could be like a day for a 15-year-old, or it could be like a week for someone who has pushed their bodies really hard and needs like some time. But I think it's just a balance there.
So how often do you climb, and generally like how long for, and when do you know when to say when, like to take a break, like a rest day?
My workouts for climbing, if I'm in a gym, are typically, I'll start with about an hour warm up around antagonist muscles and warming up my fingers and doing some hangboarding and stuff like that. And I've got about 2 to 3 hours of climbing, which if I'm, doing a climbing workout, a lot is like with systems boards or specific drills that my climbing coaches will give me. Then I'll do mobility and stretching for typically an hour a day. I typically do about an hour of cardio 5 days a week. So I'm normally training 5 to 6 days a week and climbing about 4 to 5 depending on the schedule. I guess it really depends because I also see sport-specific training really important for like going outside. If I'm preparing for a big expedition, then my hours of preparation are going to be pretty different. Like I'll be going out, hiking, climbing at an outdoor area for a while, maybe all day, and then coming back. And if I'm in the gym, I think what's great about gym climbing is it can be so concentrated and such a focused approach to training versus outdoors. You can almost like be climbing less, but out there longer. So I think that that's where like climbing gym industry is revolutionizing like the way that we can be progressing as climbers, because you can just get more done in a more concentrated way. But I don't know if I answered your question, because I think that each day can consist of different hours allotted, and probably climbing less on a book tour.
I have another question. How do you deal with fear when you're on the wall? Like, literally on the wall.
Yeah, I actually go over some of these moments in the book of really high consequence fear moments. And the way that I have to deal with it is by calming down my mind and not thinking about what could go wrong. I have to think about what I'm in control of and how I can dictate that moment to go right. But that's easier said than done. Sometimes, we're really fearful and not sure why, and I think classifying like irrational fear and rational fear is really important. Like, if I fall, am I gonna fall 2 feet onto a bouldering mat? Or if I fall, am I gonna break my leg? And if it's the latter, then trying to figure out how to mitigate that situation. And if it's the former, then just go for it. And I think that more falling, for instance, a lot of people struggle with lead climbing because it's like the idea of falling can be scary. And what I feel like helps me get over that hurdle is by falling and just by like exposing myself to the consequence that I'm scared of, because that's how you kind of expand past that fear.
Question back there?
I can be loud if you want.
Sure. Too loud.
I just have a question about your performance anxiety. You said performing since you were 6, or you said 12 competitively till now. So do you have a ritual, or how do you have performance anxiety? And if so, how has that changed throughout your career?
Yeah, I think that sometimes nerves really help me, and sometimes they hinder me. Through competition, I definitely train myself to perform under high pressure, because that's when you can get the best performance. But really depends like where my mental state is, and I think it goes back to treating high performance as the collective of like eating well, resting your body, pushing your body, resting your mind, and being in a good state. So when those factors are going well, like if I feel well rested and like I've been doing all of my training and I've done everything that I can control, then performance gets to be the fun part because you've done all the hard work. But I think that that's where it cuts back to like, you have to put in the work, because if you don't put in the work, then performance anxiety is kind of just, you're not ready. But if you can try and feel as ready as possible, then you've done all you can. And at the end of it, the best is what you have, so you have to be happy with it.
What was it like climbing big wall?
Which one?
She's done a lot.
Any?
Or what was your favorite?
Let's
big
go with the
wall
one where you had the end. You
Oh yeah.
roped it.
Yeah. I'll share my first big wall story, because I was like, oh, I'm interested to get into big wall climbing. I've done a lot in competition, done 9A in sport climbing. I want to experience what it's like to knit together all these pitches and do like a 2,000, 3,000 foot climb. So Reinhold Messner, I'd been at dinner with him, and it was like at a trade show in Salt Lake City. And for those of you who don't know who Reinhold Messner is, it's fair, I didn't know who he was either. But he's kind of arguably, I guess, the most famous mountaineer of all time. And he flipped over the wine menu at the restaurant, and we were talking about like what I should be doing for my next step. I think this was in 2011 was the dinner. And he was like, Sasha, you have to go to the Dolomites in Italy and try this climb called Bella Vista. It's like would be the hardest climb done by a woman in the Alps and like all this stuff. So I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I have no idea what that even means. Like what's, big wall climbing, what's like alpine climbing. But I threw it out there to a friend who was a Spanish climber, it was in my book. And he was like, yeah, sure, venga, let's go. So fast forward to like 2 years later, we were heading out to go climb this route in the Dolomites. And then fast forward to probably 2.5 weeks into the trip, things are going well. We've been like on the wall a little bit. I've been learning all of these skills while in like 1,000-foot consequence drop-offs, yelling like across the valley in Spanish to each other, which had studied Spanish in school, but that was about the extent of it. To when we're climbing the route and we're ready to go from the bottom to the top. And in big wall climbing, in order to succeed on a route, you need to go from the bottom to the top without falling and climb everything, in a consecutive way to get to the summit, where then you can descend. And we had climbed through the 514 pitch. I was thinking, yeah, we've done all of like the hardest parts of this climb. We have 200 feet to go, we're 1,200 feet up on the wall. We get to this point where we just like, we can't find anywhere where to clip in. There's no, it's the daunting. So for those of you unfamiliar with it, it's really known for having really loose rock. It's a limestone and rocks break all the time. And we're like looking, where it's starting to get dark because during our climb, it started to storm and there was like massive hail chunks coming down from the sky. Again, I'm new to big wall climbing, so I had like a Kit Kat in my pocket and like had gone through all of my water and I was wearing like a single layer, no down jacket or anything. So we're soaking wet and we see that there's nowhere for us to continue with our rope. And we had 200 feet of easy climbing terrain with really loose rock. And we were faced with the decision, do we simul-climb, like stay tied into each other and navigate the rest of this landscape to get to the top where we can then descend? Or should we untie from each other so that if one of us falls, it's not like necessary that the other person falls? So we decided to do that. So we're like 200 feet, 1,200 feet above the ground with 200 feet to go, free soloing, which I don't typically do, by the way. And my left hand and my left foot that I had all of a sudden peel from the wall, and like I'm like in this situation where I'm so angry because I wanted to go big wall climbing and I thought that it was this really cool thing, but I hadn't done really my preparation of like knowing all the things that could go wrong. And in that moment, I'm so full of all of these emotions, but back to the fear conversation, like I realized my climbing partner can't do anything. He's not even tied into the wall connecting me. I had to control my own fear and get myself out of this situation. So it was, I write more extensively about it in the book, but all to say, we eventually made it to the top. It was dark out, and we were at the top of this spire in the Dolomites, and there's no way down. And I realized I have my cell phone, which has service. So I call Alexandria, who was the German alpinist who did the first ascent of this climb. And I was like, Alex, how do I get down from this Chime Oeste? And he like doesn't really calculate that I'm at the top of this wall. He starts telling me about his day. And I was like, no. I'm like really, really cold and I can't find the way down. And I remember him being like, oh, Sasha, you have to sleep at the top. I was like, what? It's like probably 9:30 at this point. My climbing partner and I are like so bone cold and shivering. The Kit Kat's been eaten at this point. We have no water. We keep searching stubbornly, and then I wake up at like 5 a.m. the next day, and I'm like sitting on the ledge of a rock that's sticking out from the edge of the wall, and the sun is finally coming up, and I realize like really happy I didn't turn at night because I was on the precipice of a giant drop off the cliff. But we eventually made it down and we got pizza and then we slept from like 1 p.m. to like the next day. All to say, big wall climbing, I think that what I learned from my mistakes was go in prepared, go in knowing what can go wrong, and go with a plan around how to resolve situations if you're not going as planned, because nothing really ever goes as planned. And also, I think that preparation is something that I've learned to really like laying out all of my food, laying out all of my layers, having like good communication with my team, and the main bridge that I see of even just truncating it down to like going single pitch climbing. If you're a gym climber and you want to go climbing outside for the first time, I think it's again like go with people who know what they're doing, or go with a guide service, or with a friend who knows the area.
Quite the story. Who wants to do it? Does anybody else have any questions? One back there. Go ahead.
Can you project?
It's so funny that you just told that story. I actually found you through a YouTube video from like 5 years ago where you were climbing in Jordan and you were doing a big wall. And you talked about the first time that you did a big wall and how scary it was.
Maybe amnesia. I think that I just have learned along the way of how experiences that were a little dicey in my past could have been navigated better. And I think that that's in general, like, we course correct and learn from our mistakes. And what I really love about climbing is it's like this way that I've seen the world. At this point, I've gone to over 50 different countries to get to experience this sport and be in Madagascar and like have like lemurs climbing ahead of me and eat local food that's from the region and develop new climbing areas while learning about the cultures that exist there. I think that it's just been a really fun and engaging experience for me, moreover than like scary situations have been. Like the situations like in that story, maybe I'm still telling that story because they really stick with me, like they're pivotal moments of learning and getting better and going to my next big wall with more knowledge.
Anyone else?
Hi, so I'm a comp dad, and I have a daughter she's 16, and you're on the same team as she's on the same team as her son, and she's 5'2", she's not about 5'2", so you are her hero, But what I want to know is, for her, that it's a lot of pressure. She puts a lot of pressure on herself, has expectations, and it's sometimes the comp time is not that fun for her. And as a parent, what can I do?
I am sure that there were times for me that comp climbing wasn't that fun and I kept doing it. And then there were also times when I didn't want to compete anymore and I just wanted to climb outside. That's kind of how I transitioned my career. But I think that like when it's not fun, it's tough to succeed. So I would say, I mean, it depends. Like if she wants to compete, that's great. But climbing competitions are just one aspect of the sport. And I found a lot of joy from going. I started as a competition climber, and then by the time I was in my early 20s, I kind of transitioned from mainly competitions to mainly climbing outside. And now that's all I do. I don't actually compete anymore. But I think everyone's path, you know, is different, and sometimes you take a lull from competitions too, and decide if that's what you want to do, and revisit it, or figure out ways to make it more fun.
Any others?
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a climbing mom too. My kids are on the team here, and they're kind of the opposite. They sometimes push themselves really hard, and then sometimes they would rather do anything else. And I'm always trying to not be that mom who's pushing them to the point where it becomes not fun. But I was wondering what your mom did, or like what your parents did right, I guess, to like keep you motivated in the moments when you might not feel, when you weren't feeling it.
I don't know, Mom. So I guess the question is, how as a parent to keep your kid motivated when they're not motivated? But I think while sometimes, well, sometimes understandably, you know, going through ups and downs of motivation, I think with like anything though, training isn't always fun. Like, I climb professionally, but I don't always want to climb. But it's my job, so I, you know, show up to my workouts that feel less fun than others. I think as a kid, it is a tough balance. Like I guess I joke that I could turn to my mom because I'm not sure what the right balance is. I think
that Sportrock did a great job with a great team of kids, and it was the impetus and the growth and the power in your team that kept everybody going. And I think you were all motivated. Claudia.
yeah, there we go. I had a coach here. He used to be a coach here named Claudio, and he's in the book as well. He was Romanian, and he'd walk around with a stick and be like, "Shut up and climb." He never, it was all for show. And then I had another coach who was Ukrainian in New York, who was also very strict with, discipline and stuff like that. So I think that discipline, it's like kind of like, I didn't always want to do my homework, but in order to succeed at school too, you have to do your homework. So I think it's just a balance.
Okay, last question here. It's from me. Hold on. The Shut Up and Climb is probably the best Sportrock shirt ever. Will you tell them about that shirt?
Yeah, so when I first started at the junior team, Claudio, who, walked around with the stick and said, "Shut up and climb," was like full of, quips like that. And we needed a team shirt. And so all the parents were like, "What should the team shirt be?" And we decided on "Shut Up and Climb," but that was a little too intense. So the shirt that was the Sportrock climbing shirt, which maybe should be brought back.
I think so.
Was Tintigora Sikitera, which meant "Shut Up and Climb" in Romanian.
One more question. Go for it. Yeah.
Another long question. Two-part. What do you think about the changes in climbing currently? And then can you talk a little bit about, this is a mom question, how you dealt with climbing in high school and climbing in university?
So first of all, the changes in climbing, and there's been a lot of changes on what competition climbing used to be versus what the climbing competitions look like today. There's a lot of parkour meets very coordinated movement involved in competition that's really changed in the style. We're in this area which you can see a lot of different style climbing is set for competitions that's I think made the viewing more exciting probably than the former very static version of climbing that I feel like I grew up with in competitions. But at the same time, it's very divergent from outdoor climbing. So in a way, it's almost a good thing because you see more of a difference of you go outdoor climbing, you go indoor competition climbing. So the two aspects of the sport can kind of grow within their own specific way. And then the other question was balancing high school and climbing, college and climbing. I actually earlier today was at my high school, which was cool because I remembered so many days doing my homework in the library and rushing off to go climbing right after, and I would just try and maximize all of my free time at school to be able to get my schoolwork done so that I could maximize going climbing. But in university, it was a really hard balance for me because I was, at that point, fully a professional climber. I was still competing and also making a living from my sport to pursue these other aspects of life, like college. And I would be on an airplane Thursdays to Shanghai for an autograph signing or Japan for a competition, doing my term paper on the plane there, landing, doing an event in whatever time zone I was in, and then Sundays rushing back to the airport, finishing my homework on the plane, and then showing up at class. So I was sponsored by Red Bull at the time, which was really great. So I wasn't sleeping a lot. But yeah, I do think it was a hard balance. But time management, prioritizing what's important, was good for me. I think I look back to even my time at college. I was trying to do a lot at once, and sometimes things gave and sometimes they didn't. I definitely went through ups and downs as a result of that sort of schedule within my college experience in climbing too.
Go try the sun bars. Want to go back there for the book signing?
Yeah,
We'll,
sure.
we'll do the book signing back there. If you guys want to mingle, come meet Sasha. We'll be back there.
I'm sorry. Pretty good.
You gonna get your book signed?
I want to try one of the bars.